It's me, James. Happy Sunday to you all. I'm filming this video actually not on a Monday morning like I normally would, but I'm filming it on Sunday evening. It is Sunday, March the 30th, 2025, and I am about to conduct this week's Oracle Outlook video reading for the week ahead starting March the 31st, 2025. So let's get into it. The deck that I'm going to be using is a slight variation to the deck I used last week. If you watched last week's video, then you may remember that I used my personal deck of cards, which I call the Mitchell Cartomancy cards, which are scenic playing cards. Well, this is the deck that I'm working with this week, and it is the Mitchell Tarot playing cards. And so what this deck is, it combines the Mitchell Cartomancy cards with the major arcana of tarot. And so this has become my own personal, or one of my own personal tarot decks, my personal and custom tarot deck, right? And so I've shared this story before, but if you are here for the first time, welcome to my channel, and you will not know this story. And if you are a returning viewer and visitor, I appreciate you circling back around, and you're going to hear the story again. So the story goes like this. So way back in 1998, I had a dream that I was reading playing cards. And so that was actually the dream that got me to becoming a cartomancer, which is a nice fancy word for a person who reads cards. So what happened was I got a tarot deck as my first deck of cards. I got my first deck in February of 1999. So that was like 25 years ago, last month. And I had a follow-up dream as I started working with tarot and getting to know the tarot deck system. So in the follow-up dream, I was in the school and in the classroom, and in the room there was a spotlight on the floor, and on the floor where the spotlight was were houses of cards. So I walked over and I started picking up the cards. Get it? Pun for picking up the cards, yeah? And when I looked in my hand, they were a combination of playing cards and tarot cards. So I knew from that point forward that I was being encouraged to continue my card reading practice, but it would be a blend or a hybrid of tarot and playing cards, which this deck is. So that is the story, and I love this deck. So I'm going to go ahead and shuffle the intention for the reading, which is always asking the cards to provide the information, the guidance, the insight that is going to be most helpful as we move through the upcoming week. And this is where I always give my disclaimer for these weekly readings, is that not 100% of what the cards are conveying is going to resonate or be applicable to 100% of the viewers who land on the video, right? So with that in mind, take what resonates and just simply put the rest aside. Okay, so at this point, when the cards act like they don't want to go back together, I am done shuffling. So I'm going to go ahead now and cut the deck. All right, and so I work with lines of fives when I do these weekly general readings, so I'm looking for 5 cards in the fan that are getting my attention. Okay, these two were stuck together, so I'm going to take them both. All right, so here are the 5 cards down here. I'm going to take the remainder of the deck up, and we're going to move that to one side. We're going to line the cards up in the order that they were chosen. So here we have the 5 cards. Alright, so when I work with my decks, if it's not a Kipper deck or a Lenormand deck, I tend to work with the cards from left to right. So the first card in the line opening things up for the week ahead is the 10 of Spades. Okay, so now here we have with the suit of Spades, in the system of cartomancy that I have curated, adopted, and expanded on, Spades is the suit that represents problems, troubles, challenges, obstacles, things like that. So this could be suggesting that there are going to be potentially a lot of problems or a lot of difficulties as the week unfolds for people, just because the 10 is a high number, right? But when this card comes up, it can represent being in a state of emotional upset. You can clearly see by the image that I chose for the card that the woman is upset, right? I call this the pulling your hair out, right, card. So it could be like getting to the point where there's a situation where we just want to scream, have a good scream, have a good yell. Maybe something, that is a situation where we feel like we want to metaphorically pull our hair out, right? But this card can also turn up to suggest some kind of fear. And so I call this the fear of failure card. So again, this card would suggest the potential for a lot of problems, a lot of challenges, maybe a lot of blocks. If somebody's feeling like they're getting a lot of blocks, in their path as they're trying to move through the business of life, and feeling like they keep coming up against roadblocks, it might be get to the point where you want to pull your hair out, you want to scream. But that's what I'm seeing with the card. Again, emotional upset, problems, challenges, difficulties, and also too, a situation that ends problematically, right? So it could have there's a transition that may be difficult to move through. But again, those are all aspects of the 10 of spades. So now, next card. And here we have the Hierophant. Okay, so now the Hierophant is a major arcana card. So for me, when majors turn up, they carry more weight in a reading than the other cards do. They highlight important issues or events for me. So now you can clearly see, based on the image of the Hierophant, there is the interior of a church. So this could be, upset with the church, and that would be the large church as an institution, right? It could be also being upset with religion. It could also be, for me, this card can turn up when we're talking about institutions, just generally speaking. So there may be something having to do with institutions, socialization. So this could be about society as a whole. This could also be about the education system. So there may be some upset, 10 of spades, regarding that for people. So this could be public education, right? Or higher forms of education. Now this is assigned the sign astrologically of Taurus. So this could be about ownership, possessions. For me, the Hierophant could also be a real estate card. So there may be issues involving real estate here. But this card for me can also represent outlook. The window represents one's outlook. And so going with the idea that the Hierophant can represent maybe traditional views or traditional outlooks, this card comes up for me to represent, a conservative outlook or perspective. And so this could be a visual pun for the Conservative Party. And there may be some, again, and this would make perfect sense because we're seeing this playing out publicly, right? There's upset, emotional upset, people screaming, yelling at the Conservative Party, right? And it could just also be to a lot of problems, challenges being caused by the Conservative Party. And of course, I'm going to try and be as neutral as I can by saying that would also be a matter of perspective, right? Because there are some people who are okay with things that are unfolding. But if I just go with the two cards that are on the table that are face up right now, this would be upset with possibly the Conservative Party if I go looking at it politically speaking. It could also be people upset regarding the institution of education, right? And that would be the changes that are taking place within the Department of Education as we speak. Right? But it could also be people upset with housing, the real estate market. Next, this could be maybe things changing in that with the value of property and real estate, things like that. Now, this could also be people being upset about being displaced, because for me, this card, the Hierophant, can also be about possible changes in location. That would be like geographic changes. This is one of the cards that can suggest a move. Okay. Now, it could also be people are upset around approval. This card can represent blessings and approval. So this could be, maybe the approval of a particular figure, a particular group of people. Order of the cards. This is the upset, and it's affecting or having effect on approval. Okay, so let me move on to the card in the middle. And here we have another major arcana card. So this is Temperance. So Temperance is a card of moderation, of balance, of reconciliation. Yeah. This is a card about compromise. So let's just say hypothetically there is a situation taking place. At the heart of the matter, it's going to represent compromise in order to work things out, especially with the Ten of Spades being about problems. You have the Suit of Spades being about problems. Then this would be about reaching some level of compromise or being willing to compromise. Now, if we go with the Spades being about challenges, then the Temperance card could be suggesting, like, the idea of mixing things up, because here we have the image of a mixologist, right? But this card is also about experimentation. Right? So this card can be about, trial and error, testing a theory or a hypothesis. It could literally be something having to do with food and beverages, right? And going with the idea that the Hierophant could be talking about institutions, right? So this could be about food and beverages. This could be about healing, right? Because Temperance is also a card that can talk about medication. But it would indicate, moderation, balance, patience, going with the flow, being adaptable. So that's what I'm seeing with Temperance. Okay, next card. Oh my goodness, we have 3 majors in a row, right? Okay, so this being the ruling majority, so we have important issues or events that are unfolding. It may be, from a personal way of looking at life, that there are external factors beyond your control at play or at work. But it could also be a powerful lesson to be learned or gained from the experience. Okay, but now, the lightning struck tower. This is a card about something, a shake-up, a wake-up call, getting a swift kick in the pants. This could represent some kind of disaster. A revelation, like a truth bomb. Right? So for me, when we're talking about shake-ups, this could be, if we go with the idea that the Hierophant can represent institutions, there may be an institution in particular where there's going to be a great deal of shakeup. So this would be, somebody who has a fall from grace. If I go with the idea that the Hierophant is about religion, right, talking in religious ways, right, this could be a fall from grace. But it could also be somebody who's experiencing a fall from the top. If the Hierophant is about, let's say, something traditional like marriage, then this would be a split, separation, people deciding to go their separate ways. But it may come as a shock or surprise to other people, because this card can indicate shocks, surprises, something that happens out of the bolt or out of the blue without warning all of a sudden, those kinds of things. But it can also be, in a positive sense, a flash of insight. But, you know, whatever this is, the tower is designed to get our attention, because it could represent a fallout, a collapse of some kind. I'm talking about metaphorically, a collapse, you know, a breakup. And again, if it's about, you know, the possibility of a relationship, marriage coming to an end, this would make sense. There would be a lot of emotions attached to that, a lot of emotional upset. Also, maybe for somebody involved, it would be a difficult transition, right? But again, this would be a shock, surprise, revelation, something that comes without warning, something all of a sudden. Now, if we go with the idea that the Hierophant is about real estate, maybe somebody is actively looking to change locations, then this card would suggest a couple of things you want to be on the lookout for, right? The lightning striking the top of the tower would indicate, you know, inspection of the roof. The water at the bottom of the card would be looking at the plumbing situation with the house or the property. The lightning would also be about electrical wiring situations. And then sometimes with this card, there may be issues involving the foundation. So again, roof, electrical wiring, foundation, water. All those types of situations when you're looking at, you know, a new house or a new piece of property or real estate. But again, I'm going to go with the idea that there's going to be some shakeup, some disruption, somebody being evicted from their position, possibly, especially within an institution. And it may be somebody within the Conservative Party is being ousted on some way, somehow. But it may be like, with temperance in the middle, it may be more like a compromise. Like each party has mutually come to the same conclusion. But when it reaches the public, it may come as a shock or a surprise. Okay, so now let's take a look at the final card. And here we have the Nine of Clubs. Okay, so the Nine of Clubs, I'll hold the card up. So the Nine of Clubs is the journey card. So this card can talk about a psychological journey, emotional journey, spiritual journey, right? And the image is the open road. So this could be something that's down the road, right? Especially as the last card, the timing card. So it could be something that's down the road or something that is some ways off. Or we could be doing rear view and taking a look at how far we've come and the progress we've made. The suit of clubs is about progress. But the suit of clubs is also the suit that has to deal with social events, social issues, something having to do with the public at large, yeah. And then the 9 is the number of gain or attainment. But this card is known as the time and distance card, but it talks about progress being made. So either you are noting how far you've come, or something that is down the road, like how much further you have to go to achieve a goal, right? To attain a goal, right? The 9. And if somebody is getting ousted, lightning struck tower, then here I'm hearing in my head, hit the road, Jack. Right? So somebody may be hitting the metaphorical road, right? On the next leg of their journey. But here, we started with a spade. I'm going to end on the pip cards, the playing cards. So we started out with the spade and we ended with a club. So what that means for me is that this would be problems that get worked out. And these are going to be what it takes to work them out. So some big events, some things that are going to involve maybe a number of people just because they're major arcana cards, to work that out, to move from problem to solution. And also, too, the clubs would suggest it's going to take a great deal of effort, right? Because we have a 9, high number, right? The higher the number is the more effort that is going to be needed or involved in the process. So with that, I'm going to end this week's Oracle Outlook reading here. If you made it this far in the video with me, thank you so much for giving me the gift of your time. I know, I say it every week, but I know there are so many options for your time, so many things vying for your attention. I am so pleased that you are willing to give me some of your time and some of your attention. James and Mitchell signing off. I look forward to seeing you in this space again for our next Oracle Outlook video reading. So until then, hope you have a great day. Hope you have a great week. And take care.